Welcome to the Craft of Coaching podcast, where we dive into what it truly takes to become a skilled, confident life coach. I'm your host, Kate, head of the CLCC, or Certified Life Coach Collective, an ICF-Accredited Level 1 coach training program. We combine courage, coaching, and community to offer you more than just a training program, but a life-changing experience where you use your own personal transformation as the learning ground for supporting your clients. On this podcast, we explore how you can use coaching skills to support your clients or expand your own growth, all grounded in evidence-based coaching practices. Learn more about our program and get free resources for becoming a life coach at teamclcc.com. And now, here's today's episode. Let's talk about how to help support clients to take action. And before we get into the practical ways to support client action and helping people move from insight to implementation, I want to address something that I hear a lot, even from trainees who are in the Certified Life Coach Collective, CLCC. They'll say, I'd love to become a coach, or I'm committed to becoming a coach, but I notice that sometimes I'm holding space for a client and they're struggling to take action. And there's this little voice in my head going, you don't have your life in perfect order. You don't always take action. And then sometimes I struggle with, how am I supposed to help someone else take action when I myself struggle to take action? Very common concern that coaches have. So let me expand on that just a little bit. Here's the thing. Name me a doctor who has perfect health. You might find one, but there are a lot of them who take medications. Or how about accountants who have perfect finances? I actually worked with a coaching client once who was in finance, and one of the things we were talking about was money. And I was musing and saying, it's interesting that you went into finance and then, money is a struggle behind the scenes. And I'm curious about how you reconcile that. And she laughed and she said, most of the people who work in finance have issues with money. And I don't know, obviously, if statistically that's true, but it was a very interesting take. Ask any therapist. You got to ask one who has integrity, though, to be honest. Do you have your life perfectly together? And I think they will tell you, no, I don't. They are human, just like everybody else. So let's just get this out of the way right now. Having your life perfectly sorted is not a prerequisite for helping others. Now, if it is constant and to the point of dysfunction, that I would say is deeply out of integrity. I know of speaking of money, a money coach who his entire platform is about teaching people to become millionaires. And I know for a fact he is not a millionaire at all, like nowhere near it. So I don't understand. And he's been on this, I teach you to have a millionaire mindset thing for like 5 years, 10 years. He has not been a millionaire any of those years. I take some issue with that. If I'm actually hiring a coach because I myself am like, I'm going to become a millionaire, I would really like that person to have strategically managed to have accomplished that thing. But, the rest of it, if we're talking about, I get bogged down in my resistance and I don't want to take action, that's human. Okay. Now, if you want to support people, do I think that you should be self-aware? Do I think that it's a good idea for coaches to be working on the things that are gaps in their own lives? Yeah. But again, nobody is perfect. No doctor has perfect health. No therapist has a perfect life. No accountant has perfect finances. There are no perfect mothers. There are no perfect teachers. Having your life perfectly sorted out is not a prerequisite for helping others. The fact that this is such a concern and the fact that coaches really need support in their own personal lives is a big reason why the CLCC coach training program is not just a coach training program. In fact, we emphasize personal work. We will be asking you on your application, what are the personal growth issues that you specifically want to work on as part of your time in CLCC? Because you're not just learning how to coach others, you're also learning how to coach yourself. We want you to look at the places in your own life where you get stuck and use that awareness to become a stronger and also more compassionate coach. Because let's be real, the greatest empathy I have when a client is deep in self-blame because they told themselves that they're going to do something and they aren't following through. The deepest empathy I have is based on the fact that I know what that feels like because I have been in my own shame spiral before when I didn't follow through. I'm proud to say that I follow through a hell of a lot better than I did way back when because I've been doing that work. And so that's what I encourage. But again, nobody's perfect. Everybody encounters resistance. So now let's shift into, and now that I've given you my TED Talk on perfectionism and all the rest, let's shift into specific strategies for helping clients to take action. First one, set the container clearly. I think that one of the things that gets missed sometimes in a conversation about taking action is that there is no clear container. A clear container for taking action is one that sets expectations around action taking. It is very common for clients to come into coaching assuming my coach is going to hold me accountable. Like as if you're going to be like a football coach on the sidelines yelling, like, get out there and win, cue the sports movie montage, right? That is so common. And it's so common that it's possible that your clients haven't even articulated it to you. Maybe they're coming to coaching and they're like, great, this coach is going to help me. And anytime I tell them that I'm going to do something and then the next session I haven't done it, that coach is going to be like, hey, what's going on? And there are stereotypes about coaches that are, on TV or movies or whatever, where that's happening. And certainly some coaches might coach that way, but modern coaching, typically not. So I think it's really important to let clients know right from the start what your perspective about that is. I personally actually talk to my clients about how I view practices that are undertaken between sessions. I literally tell my clients, I don't consider these practices to be homework. I'm not the teacher who's going to be wagging a finger at you if you don't do them. You're going to get so much more out of this if you do them, but I'm not going to shame you if you don't. I'm going to be very clear. You'll get less from coaching if you don't follow through, and there's a cost to staying stuck. My role is not to push you. My role is to advocate for your growth. You are always in choice. So whatever your philosophy is on that, I recommend that you personally write it out if you need a script, or just know and be prepared for what you're going to say about setting a container, setting those expectations around action taking with your clients. And I often encourage clients to see times when they don't follow through on an action they said they'd take as an opportunity actually for us. Because if the client comes into coaching and quote unquote does everything perfectly, then are they really growing? But if a client comes into coaching and they say they're going to do something and then they don't do it, then that becomes a really fruitful ground for us to explore. And if we can get into the bottom of why it is that they didn't follow through, that could be something that benefits them for the rest of their life. I love imagining that. Next thing for helping clients take action. Sometimes coaches get kind of caught up in what their client's process should look like. And I encourage you to hold the Venn diagram of coaching. This is the visual that I love. So you take a Venn diagram, 2 overlapping circles, okay? The client's circle is about their process, their growth, their pacing. The coach's circle includes our responsibility to stay in integrity, support our clients, be really real about the fact that you're advocating for their growth, also noticing our biases and staying present. Where those 2 circles overlap is the overall fulfillment of the relationship. Each person has to bring their part for it to work. Your job as a coach is not to decide what your client's process should look like. It's to notice when the client's actions and words don't match, to call the client in to what they're committing to as part of the coaching arrangement, which is going to involve some level of your words and actions match. And your job as a coach is also to notice when your own expectations or judgments start creeping in. And when you notice that, gently refocus on the client's autonomy. The client has to be the one who wants to change. Of course, I've seen clients stall out on action over and over. And then one day something clicks and they're more invested in coaching, or they're hearing themselves repeat the same patterns. They go, no more, this has to change. And that moment of ownership is really powerful. It won't come from pressure. It comes from reflection. And if it does come from pressure, it's a false win. Because what happens when they're no longer coaching with you? If somebody always needs, the external pressure, they're not truly changing from within. Next, I think that it's important for coaches to develop with clients practices that support taking action. Not just journaling about it, not just thinking about it, but practices that actually are very active, that are either moving the needle on where the client wants to go, or that become practices that can become habits that will help them overall to flourish. So I'll give you some examples. Now, probably most experienced for most of you are action-oriented practices. It's tangible things like make the phone call, send the proposal, set the date. There are accountability practices, check-ins, and structure, but again, avoiding rewards or punishments. This isn't school. We don't want coaching to feel like homework and you're going to get in trouble or you fail the class. But essentially, how will you be accountable to yourself, and having a conversation with the client about how they'll be accountable? Will they check in with their partner? Will they email their coach? What are they going to do to be accountable? Next, for moving the needle here, somatic practices. Body scans, breath work, checking in with how something feels before saying yes or no to a request. This is an example of the type of practice that if a client were to undertake it and make it a habit that was consistent, the client would ultimately end up shifting who they are or how they orient the world in a positive way. If you become less reactionary to stress because you're engaging with a somatic practice, if you are less likely to people please because you check in with how something feels before saying yes or no, if that becomes your default, ultimately it's an active practice. I consider that to be taking action, because someone who does that consistently is essentially changing how they orient themselves to the world. Next, a clarifying practice. This is for clients who maybe need to go a couple levels down. And this is a practice of at least once a day, but particularly around triggering events, asking yourself questions like, what's really going on here? Or what's the deeper truth? If you have a client who says, I really want to become a marathon runner, all right, that's like a dream. I love to run. I've always wanted to do a marathon. I just can't quite make myself do the longer distances, something like that. Asking your client to have a check-in when they're resistant to running, like, what's really going on here? Or what's the deeper truth? It could be really, really illuminating. It could be anything that will come up for your client from, turns out I don't want to be a marathoner. I just think I should because that's what my friends are doing. Who knows? Maybe that would be, some people are like, that would be crazy. Nobody would do that. But I could see it happening. It could also be what's really going on here is maybe your client is like the same age that their mother was when their mother died. And so there's something about like doing something so physical with the marathon, the same age that their mom was when their mom died, that just is really deep and painful. Maybe the client like needs to talk about that. Whatever the practice is, the point of these practices and getting clients to take action is to help clients integrate what they're learning in sessions into the fabric of their daily lives. So it's something that either moves something forward, like make the call, set the date, or practices that start to reshape who the client is in a positive direction, in the direction of their vision. Now, there's one other thing that we need to talk about, and it is recognizing inaction as an action. I know that sounds a little strange, but let's talk about inaction, because when inaction happens over and over and over with clients, it's become a habit for them. And that inaction has now become their default action. So really looking at how to help your clients understand that not taking action, not making a decision, not deciding to confront the resistance, not choosing to try out the somatic practice between sessions, whatever it might be, that in and of itself is an action step. It's just an action step that takes them in the opposite direction of where they're saying they want to go. And I have found that in my own life, as well as working with clients, that when I or my clients habitually avoid a particular thing, first, it's helpful to go, what's that about? And really understanding, is it just fear or is it something else? Like maybe I don't actually want to do that. And then once you have that understanding, really getting that if you say you want your house to not be so cluttered and messy, and then you just buy more things or you don't create time to pick up your stuff, you're making a decision. You're essentially casting a vote for a life you don't want. If you say that you want to have a full-time coaching practice, but you're going, I know I should do a little more with like social media, networking, marketing, but I'm just not a marketing kind of person. Not true. You are, in fact, someone who could learn the skill of marketing. You're just choosing not to. And I'm not saying any of that to be mean or call anyone out. I'm saying that because it's true. You're casting a vote for a life you say you don't want. So today we've covered a lot. First things first, I really think it's important to set expectations with clients about action and accountability within the coaching environment, because they might be coming with some expectations and you don't even realize it. Next, use coaching sessions to really help clients get to the bottom of where they're stuck, and offer a variety of practices that are customized and that are meaningful. If the only practices you ever assign are the ones that are like, set the date, do the thing, expand that, because sometimes people need practices to take action, like that somatic check-in. Sometimes it's overwhelming to take action. In a somatic practice, it could be the thing that allows a client to feel like they can take action. And last, make sure you're addressing inaction as an action in and of itself. It's a learned habit. It's not a flaw. It doesn't mean someone's bad, but it does mean that every time you refuse to take an action in the direction of the life you do want, you're only reinforcing staying stuck in the life that you don't want. All right, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, would you help us out and take a moment to give us a rating in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening? It really helps us get the word out to other listeners. And before you go today, would you like free resources to support your coaching journey? Whether you're considering becoming a coach or you want advanced coach skills training, access our coaching resource library at teamclcc.com. Again, that's teamclcc.com. Can't wait to connect with you. And again, thanks for listening.